What a crazy year it's going to be for this game. One beta has just commenced. We're going to have Wrath Classic and Dragonflight release within the next 6 months. Probably within the next 2 or 3 weeks, there'll be Dragonflight testing. I mean, man, it is just crazy stuff. That's just insane. Yeah, the quiet times are truly about to end. Of course then, things are actually happening in the live games as well. Pretty exciting things. Plus a dash of our good old friend, the fun police. That's another dash of our other good old friend, nordvpn.com/Bellular Gaming, today's sponsor, which is available at my link with the exclusive deal and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Also a new thing I learned. So obviously, why do you want to get a VPN? Well, it's simple enough. Do you maybe want to watch some content for another region, maybe Netflix? You can do that. What I recently learned is Tom Scott was able to save himself hundreds on rental cars, because it turns out rental car providers kind of extort you if you are renting from within the destination country. So he zooped back to the UK and got his car way cheaper. Kind of wild, I didn't think of that one. Of course, Nord also keeps you private. Your ISP won't know what sites you're using, so they can't sell your browsing data to advertisers, nor can they prioritize some sites that you use over others. I've also got Nord Locker for storage and NordPass for passwords. All, of course, in the app and web browser extension that are super easy to use. And you can get that offer, the link down below, nordvpn.com/Bellular Gaming, with, of course, the 30-day money-back guarantee. So, thanks to Nord for supporting the channel for so long. And with that said, let's get stuck into this news. Okay, first up, the obvious. I did a full video on this. I'll give you the TLDR. Pre-orders for the expansion are up, and the latest possible release date is the end of December this year. This is exciting in one way, worrying in another. In the video I did, I fully broke down what the implications are there. To give you a few quick notes, Dragonflight may indeed be well on schedule. They claimed it was during their little panel thing, but who knows there. But if Shadowlands was cut down as an expansion, then that would buy them more time to work in Dragonflight. They could shift resources over to it earlier. Also, Dragonflight does have large new systems that will take a hell of a lot of work, like professions and talents. But you could also say that they're not coupled into massive borrowed power-like reward systems that we had in Shadowlands, and that may, or may not, make them, while still a lot of work, perhaps a bit more friendly to the timeline and the scheduling because of a smaller amount of unknowns cropping up in the development process. That's just a theory, though. Maybe it could be a big old disaster. We don't know, but either way, the external alpha will probably start soon, so we will soon enough be able to get a handle on how the game is actually shaping up. There's also the money side of things, of course, so along with these pre-orders, there are loads of new cosmetics, a new battle pet, a bundle of existing cosmetics that contains that pet. All editions of Dragonflight are actually $10 more expensive than previous editions of, previous expansions. And in terms of how they've sliced up the pricing, they're probably going to do a great job of getting people to spend more in the higher editions. It's $20 more than base for what contains a level 60 boost and a mount. And I think another thing too. Then $20 more than that also includes 30 days of game time, usually valued at $15, plus as the kind of big ticket item, the Dragon Wing cosmetic. So I think that's a slicing up of the rewards that will very much encourage people pretty far up the pay scale, I suppose. I guess another thing. Yes, it does come 30 days of game time, but also remember, if that 30 days of game time activates now and you wouldn't be playing the game anyway, then it's not really giving you a value. Yeah, so there's that. I suppose if you were to get the physical collector's edition and that had a 30-day code, at least you could know that whenever you redeem that code, then the time would be applied to your account. Then you get the value for that if you were perhaps only planning on coming back when the expansion launches, if it's good. Okay, so that's basically that. I expect when we see their Q2 earnings report, we will probably see a big old chunk of revenue sort of jump up for this quarter because of Immortal and, of course, this WoW stuff. Next then, a new feature and the fun police. Okay, earlier this week it was discovered that you can actually change your field of view in WoW beyond the default of 90 by using a console command that will let you set it between 50 and 120. That was a brilliant undocumented feature of patch 9.2.5. The Blizzard have now fixed, so they've removed the ability to go beyond the default field of view of 90. Now, the reasoning that they provided seems insane to me, to be honest. Blizzard have stated that the ability to adjust your field of view was added as an accessibility measure to help combat motion sickness. Now, motion sickness is usually made worse by tighter fields of view. This is something so many of us PC gamers started to realize whenever console games were really taking over PC at a certain point in time, decently in the past. So on PC, we'd kind of get like shitty ports of games, and they would often have the same field of view that the console games would have. The thing is, though, the console game is played in a TV, you know, maybe a few meters away from you, whereas a PC game is right up in your face, which would mean that the tight FOV would make people super motion sick. That happened to me. So, usually then, widening the field of view is what equals less motion sickness. So, the accessibility feature for field of view only lets you reduce the field of view from default, which would make, for most people who would suffer from motion sickness, would make it worse. What? Why are they doing this? Going through replies to Blizzard's quote tweet of Wowhead, the amount of people just wanting to preserve the above 90 field of view is overwhelming. They've been nearly universally condemned from this, for doing this. Not only does the higher FOV help people who suffer from motion sickness, but it could also, say, benefit people who are using ultra-wide displays. For some people, the game just looks a little bit better. I mean, of course, a wider field of view does literally mean that you see more on the screen, so I suppose some more performance-oriented players would like that as well, in the same way that they like zooming the camera out to as much of a maximum as they can. So it's an odd thing overall. On Blizzard's side, I totally understand not wanting the FOV to get so high that there's a large informational disparity between players, right? I mean, do you want your tanks, almost sitting there with near 360 vision, which would mean then that the good tanks would all use that? I mean, I know it was only 120, but you get my point. So that a tank who didn't know about that would be at a disadvantage. These are the sorts of things Blizzard could be worried about. But, I mean, if this is being done in the name of accessibility and you can't really increase it from default, that just sucks. So it seems that nobody really likes this. But Blizzard do seem a bit more willing to listen these days. Maybe they will change. All I can say is, here, it's a free win. Just take it. It's that easy. Well, what is another week of news without another huge wave of Mythic Sepelcur nerfs? It's just a fun developing story. So yes, Blizz have implemented another wave of chunky nerfs, stating that they want to further reduce the likelihood that punishing mechanics can quickly cause unrecoverable wipes. That's funny enough, because as a bit of a nooblet of a person, I'd always thought that that's the sort of thing the Mythic people were a bit more okay with, but, per the understanding of the resident cutting-edge Mythic Raider in our team, if he wasn't before, Anduin is now well and truly gutted, and some are saying that he basically feels like week 1 heroic now. Interesting. They've apparently removed the Mythic-only element of Blasphemy, and they've made it so the debuff lasts 4 seconds longer, meaning that what is left is kind of just the heroic version in addition to nerfing a whole load of damage and ability cast times. And then for Lehivium, Lehivium's also literally had a mechanic removed. It's Resonant Cascade, with its damage being nerfed by 90%. So the way it worked, I've been told, is that before this nerf, teams would need to split the raid into 5 equal groups of 4 players to spread the damage out and match the correct buffs. But after this nerf, the whole raid can just stack in one spot and resolve the mechanic. So basically, it's kill the mechanic. Odd. So while the nerfs on Jailer also don't look too huge by comparison, they are also quite impactful. I'm not going to go into the details, but basically a whole bunch of boss abilities have had their damage nerfed by between 25 and 30%. There's now 1 less chain to break, and they've removed an annoying interaction when breaking the chains. So this should then allow for guilds to more consistently and cleanly get into Phase 3 and 4, probably meaning more Jailer kills to come, and who knows, perhaps the Alliance Hall of Fame will be filled within the next decade. It's an odd story. Look, it's obviously one that does not impact me. It's great having Mythic Raider on our team here to kind of disseminate all the insights down to us mere mortals. It certainly is an odd situation. A lot of Mythic Raiders are pretty pissed at this situation because they see it as moved goalposts. However, there has been a whole discourse that's sort of cropped up basically around the idea that because of like the power of the split farming and all of that stuff, guilds now kind of have the levels of power that world first racing guilds had decently early on in the race. So now it's a situation where it's like, who is the Mythic difficulty working for? I don't really know. I'm not equipped to answer this situation. It almost seems to me like there's two Mythics in a way. Like there's the crazy hard Mythic that, you know, kind of encourages people to use the split runs and all of that. That's what the Race to World First people do. But then also there's like the Mythic that most people do, which often does seem to be nerfed a bit. Here it's just nerfed a hell of a lot. What we do know though is that the lessons that they've learned here are going to be applied into the next expansion. So I suppose we'll just have to see what that's like. Next, classic news that I think is going to get a lot of people more interested in playing, especially because of Wrath. So let's go. Blizz are implementing a global 50% XP buff to all TBC Classic servers. The time frame is not locked in, but they said we can expect that it will last between 6 and 8 weeks and will begin a few weeks before the Wrath of the Lich King pre-patch starts and will persist until the launch of Wrath Classic. It's also going to be active in the Fresh Start servers too. Now, Blizzard says this will provide a great jumpstart for players who just want to level up quickly during the pre-patch. I think, yeah, fair enough. That heads off maybe some concerns that the pre-patch, which is when the Wrath Classic servers Fresh Starts will go live, that would just not be enough time. But it does mean people will be able to hit the older cap a bit faster and therefore participate in the Wrath pre-patch events, like the Zombie Plague. Also the time-limited bosses, but really for me, the Zombie Plague, it's so cool, and I guess this means the Zombie Plague will be a bit more alive on those servers, so that's kind of exciting, right? Yeah, a bit different, but it sure does make the Fresh Start servers perhaps feel less daunting. Now, that being said, there's also another change here. Blizzard are making it significantly harder to endlessly snare and kite mobs inside dungeons, and they've also reduced the amount of experience, group experience, that is earned when there's a large disparity of level between players. I think we all know what that's about. It's what they've also said it's about. Curbing level boosting services, which of course, as we know, often are done on a real money transaction, aka RMT, basis. Okay, there's yet more for Classic though, because the Wrath beta has just started. I'm actually not in it, so can't tell you much about it. Maybe I need to send 1 or 2 emails. But Blizzard have announced some notable changes. So first, they want to ensure that set acquisition, emblems, and raid lockouts are a bit more consistent. And this is interesting because, you know, I was there at the time listening to Blue Please, like many other people were in Wrath, but all these things evolved during that expansion. That's what's so cool about Wrath, or at least interesting. It's really when the game changes a lot. But they want these things to be consistent for the Classic experience. And that means that the emblem format of TOC and ICC is being extended backward into Ulduar and Naxx. They're also, this is kind of big, going to make sure that dungeons stay relevant for longer. We're not exactly sure how, but they just don't want the idea that people are maybe... you know, later on in the expansion, they have loads of gear, and they're just kind of cranking out these dungeons to get some of the resources, but there's, like, no gameplay to them. Now, I personally would not worry about anything Mythic Plus-like happening here. I think they would still want things to feel the same. Then, they said that they loved how players stayed active across a few different raid tiers in TBC and kind of used a lot of alts and things like that, and they want to continue that in Wrath. Be interesting to see how that's achieved. I mean, Wrath and TBC progression were pretty different, but I think you could also say that with the format of the emblems, or, you know, badges, whatever, that it does make some alt play, like, pretty friendly. Now, there is a very welcome change, though, and that is that Naxxramas is being buffed. It will be harder this time round. They, of course, admitted that it was too easy last time. Okay, we've also then seen the new group finder. It's replacing the dungeon finder that Blizzard added into Wrath of the Lich King a bit later on, that was the match-made one. Now, what it essentially is reminiscent to the one that we have in Modern with, the various different categories, roles. It's just a really nice evolution of the TBC one, perhaps informed by what they've learned from the Modern Finder. But of course, it is Wrath, so, there's no, rating or item level displayed. And that does make me wonder, will there be an add-on, like Gear Score, kind of coming into the situation? Who knows? But overall, I think things are going rather well. Rather than a pure classic with no changes, it's definitely a some changes experience. They're being very upfront about that. It's actually been great seeing the communications from that team. But basically, it's almost as if this expansion is going to be Wrath of the Lich King, but somewhat systemically remastered, but in a light touch way, which I'm kind of keen for. Wrath ultimately was an expansion of experimentation, and I think they're just trying to incorporate what actually worked best into this release. Next, some funny news, Diablo Immortal update. Essentially, it's been indefinitely delayed in China, which was quite a surprise. There is no release date, even though there is now a release date for other countries in the region. Now, nobody really knows why. There's been some stuff floating around that apparently a NetEase employee made reference to Winnie the Pooh, which is obviously a big no-no, but that's just one theory. I mean, there's other examples of big games from the likes of Tencent and NetEase being delayed, but we just literally don't know right now. It could be over the government, their push for anti-addiction measures in games. It could be to do with measures to restrict the playtime and access of minors. But it's a NetEase game. Surely those things would have been sorted already. And that's what confuses me. There's lots of reasons a game may not pass the regulations in China, but you would have thought the NetEase would, know about that and actually get this stuff right. So it is a very strange one. And at the very least, it's going to be a frustration to the company, because Immortal is essentially a perfect game for the Chinese market. We've always kind of known that it really is a game that's going to be making perhaps even the lion's share of its revenue from that region. So that it's going to be knocked out of that quarter is surely pretty damn frustrating for Blizz. Okay, so that's really where we're at with the news. Overall, I think the point I want to make is just how crazy it's going to be over the next while. So there's Wrath Beta. I'm not in that. I don't really know how I would cover it much because I don't really know what there is to say. I mean, I played Wrath back in the day, but certainly that's one bit of ongoing news. Soon enough, we are of course going to have the DRAGONFLIGHT stuff, so that will be pretty major. We'll be back. There'll be a whole testing cycle. Hopefully I get in, of course. If I do, then it will be the usual. We'll be trying to get, just the whole team together to do all that we can to share with you what the expansion is like. Of course, I'm particularly excited about the dragon riding features. I'm very keen to see just how that measures up and if it's actually fun. For me, it's an expansion that, at least thematically, or maybe at a very top level view, I would be excited about because it's kind of a return to the high fantasy stuff that I already liked, kind of getting away from the weird meta stuff of Shadowlands. So, obviously we'll have to see if it's good, see if the systems work, but at least at a very top level, I do really like the priorities that they have going into this one. So I'll be very excited to test it, and of course, give honest thoughts. If I see an issue, I'm gonna make some noise, I'm gonna talk about the issue. Because I think we all know, probably the WoW team included, that BFA was rocky, Shadowlands was rocky. I really don't think anyone is wanting another rocky experience. So, man, that testing will happen. But in terms of the live products that you guys can play, Wrath's probably pretty soon, right? Like maybe Q3, Dragonflight Q4. That's just so much WoW stuff. If you're really into the modern game, and of course Season 4 applies to you, then I've got to imagine Season 4 will be pretty soon, right? And I think it's going to be Season 4, straight into pre-patch. So by the time you've probably progressed through most of the Fated raids, or done whatever you want to do, enjoy the new Mythic Plus season with, with dungeons we haven't seen in a while, it won't be that long until, Dragonflight pre-patch starts. That's the crazy thing about a release late this year. Assuming it comes out with a sort of a good enough level of quality, then, we're not going to have as humongous of a delay, of a sort of content drought that we usually do because of the efforts of 9.2.5. right? It's almost as if with Shadowlands, it's kind of like less content, less patches, but spread out more so that it's, you know, smoothly under-delivering. I mean, hey, look, I really did like Zereth Mortis, and I think a lot of the 9.2.5 stuff's actually quite great, and they're incorporating a lot of really good lessons. So, look, it's an exciting enough time. We'll pay attention to it. Yeah, that's it. Crazy time for WoW. We're all going to get so much stuff. So at least, you know, there's going to be something to engage in, something to follow, which is nice after, to be honest, what has been, you know, a somewhat depressing while, because it's not fun whenever things aren't great. It's far more entertaining to have a expansion that ends like Legion, where everyone is really excited and you can make a video about how cool you thought it was, than it is for, you know, the shitty Zoval ending, right? Yeah, I don't know. It's just been a rough 2 years, so there's a bit of me that's just excited for a, you know, little bit of a fresh slate, right? A little bit of Blizzard working the fundamentals instead of bolt-on borrowed power. There's a little bit of me that's excited and hopeful, I suppose, but, I mean, obviously I say that with a caveat of, don't pre-order, because that way, we're all in the clear. Okay, that's it for today's video. I hope you found things interesting. If you're a Mythic Raider, I'd love to know what your thoughts are on all of this stuff. If you want to check out NordVPN, you can do that with the sponsor link down below. And I think that's it. I'm out. So, have a great weekend. Goodbye.